guess I should probably do some kind of an intro, I guess.
What's up?
And breathe. Anyway, so in celebration of Movember, I guess that's kind of the wrong word. In raising awareness for Movember, which apparently, according to the internet, which is something that I didn't know, was actually also about men's mental health rather than just, raising awareness for sort of like cancers and stuff. Seriously, something I didn't know. We're going to have a wee chat about men's mental health, which is a particularly important one at the minute, and also, is a bit of a, sometimes is a fringe topic in our sport, because, it is sort of like 75-ish% women, so, there are lots of like general awareness and stuff, but, in terms of like, specific stuff for, for the guys that dance, there's not necessarily a whole lot, so, bringing this forward is quite important. I mean, hopefully most people that are watching this will know my face, because I've been teaching you for the last few months or years, depending on who you are. But it's especially if you're new, you may not necessarily know Michael by face and voice, only necessarily by name. So I am joined by our president, who is down there, look, just sort of sitting below me in this little chat. There
Even wearing my hoodie.
Indeed, look at you. You're way more prepared than me. I have no idea where mine is.
I didn't intend for this to happen. It just so happened.
It is also worth saying that whether or not you end up wearing your hoodie for this is irrelevant, because I may cut the video out if it's shit. So we will see.
What?
I know, exactly. You put so much effort in, and it may not be worth. We'll find out. We'll find out.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I've got some general sort of like pointers, but the TLDR is that most people, especially guys, at some point in their life, get put through the ringer in terms of these kind of like talking points about mental health, right? So mental health affects all people, and it's and I'm going to be candid. I'm not gonna censor any of this. It's pretty shit for most people, right? Like it doesn't get. It's never good, and it's just sort of varying degrees of either bad or bearable. So like it's
those doors, I think, as well. So on the face of it,
exactly,
they seem absolutely fine, but then behind closed doors, they might be having one of the worst times of their life.
Exactly.
I find like it's kind of hard to know, and I guess part of the Movember scheme is to help people sort of speak up about it.
Yeah, for sure. It's awareness, isn't it? Like there is probably no other time of year or platform where two guys would have a candid public conversation about this kind of stuff. Like that's the point, right? Is that it needs to be said, but often you need to find the time and the space to say it. So that's sort of the purpose of this kind of stuff. So obviously with a highlight on me and Michael, obviously, because we're present for this discussion. But hopefully anything we talk about will maybe resonate with people, or sort of have some relations to you guys, or to be fair, hopefully not, to be honest. But if it does, and it's some way helps you justify or understand what you're going through, then that's great. That is in fact
maybe more conversation about it as well, which I think is another part of the scheme, isn't it? To just reduce any stigma around talking about things.
Yeah, I guess we will get to stigma. That is on my list, Mike. Don't skip ahead. I know I legit didn't show you the list, but you're skipping ahead, and come on now.
Sorry, edit that out.
Right, cool. So I'm going to start with one that I know that definitely has affected me a lot. And I know when it's sort of reading bits and pieces around that, it seems to be one that comes up, sort of like a general theme about men's mental health is about responsibility. So a sort of a blanket thing, right? There was because of the way that society is, even at the beginning of I know you're 4 years older than me, but even at the sort of very. I had to. I'm sorry. I'm 21 and young and loving life, mate.
You do me like this.
I'm young and loving life. It's fine. But no, say even though you're 4 years older than me, even at the very sort of early years of our life, we weren't. And I mean, I guess there's still many arguments to say that we're still not necessarily living in a free and genderly equal society. That's not the way you're meant to say it, but you know what I mean. There were still lots of sort of innate sort of sexism and sort of some different emphases put on men and women, especially when they were growing up. And I guess one of the sort of like the after effects of that, I know especially for me, is that you arrive in a much better, much sort of in a far equaler place where I can be in my relationship with my girlfriend and be two halves of one whole, right, rather than sort of like this male dominated sort of space. But then that
Yeah.
sort of leaves a void where you're, I know most people are sort of brought up under the assumptions that you take responsibility for certain things, even and
Mm.
and then you sort of we now exist in a world where quite rightfully you're not meant to, and that's sort of
Yeah.
like from anything to emotions to family members passing away to breakdowns of like parents relationships and stuff. It's all kind of under that big sort of umbrella. I mean, I don't know if you want to sort of chat a bit about things that you feel responsible for, because I know that's sort of like you know a big
What I've
guy
been
topic for sure.
um I'm still, if I'm honest, I'm a little confused on what you mean by responsible. Is it that like the male and then the females are like kind of responsible for different things, or
So there's an element of that, but it's quite a big sort of umbrella thing, right? Like there's an
yeah,
element of that and sort of like the way we were taught, but then there's also sort of like the fact that and if you can read sort of like psychological stuff about this, that there seems to be a tendency for men to take responsibility for things that they shouldn't take responsibility for. So I know that.
along lines of guilt sort of thing as
Yeah,
well.
exactly, right. So yeah, guilt's a big part of it, and I know that sort of specific element is something that I've definitely suffered with for sure. I mean,
Yeah, I would
survivor's guilt is
agree.
quite prevalent in men, and that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Well, if we're going down like the personal route, I might as well just jump in. Like, I think you mentioned survivor's guilt. I think
yeah,
I felt that personally quite a lot because just to get it out there, obviously, I am a member of a family of four. So my sister, my father, and my mother. Unfortunately, across the whole span of my life, they've all sadly passed away. And I think survivor's guilt's like been something for me because I've always, and I still do to an extent, think like, why them and not me?
yeah,
Because obviously I feel like, my dad at my age, the ripe age of 25, he was like around the world, jet setting, reviving companies from the brink of liquidation. My mum was the front cover of her bank, and my sister, well before my age, was preparing her career to be like a marine biologist in Florida. Then there's me, like, I go to the gym every now and then. But I'm just like, I feel like they could have done so much more, if they had my life rather than me. And I think that's something I always struggle to deal with. And I guess that's where, the responsibility you're talking about comes in for me because I'm like,
for
it's
sure.
my job now to carry on the Hawley name, so to speak, on my own because I don't really have anyone else
Yeah, I mean
to
that
fall
that
back.
weight is rightly or wrongly, and no matter how you justify it, right, the weight's firmly on your shoulders, right? Like that's definitely how it feels.
Mm.
And that
But
can
I think guilt.
happen.
Uh,
Sorry, go on.
sorry.
Yes, I mean that can happen to anyone for any number of things, and I think with you, I mean, my experience of having the privilege of being your friend is that like, you know,
Oh, mate.
it's I know we got to get deep, man. Otherwise, this is never going to be any help. you know, having the privilege of being your mate, like the thing I understand about that is that it is just a constant thing, right? You live even subconsciously your entire existence on that kind of logic, right? And I get that. I mean, I do too for different people. It's like
Yeah.
no matter how other people justify it to you, you've been brought up in a world where like there are still sort of like these hints of like being the man of the house and inheriting the family name, which is still very much a thing, right? And all of this
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
which is sort of like male specific, where like there's this big responsibility sort of thrust on you to sort of carry the family line on and all of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
It's almost like you're driven down something you're supposed to do rather than
Yeah,
something.
exactly. And
Uh,
that will lead you in that may lead you into life choices that you wouldn't have otherwise have made, and stuff like that, right?
mm,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it's absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, for like if I just for me, like I mean, my uncle passed away last year from motor neuron disease at age 51, right? Which is not old for a man that accomplished a lot of stuff. And you like for me, I mean, I know that I inherited a lot from him in terms of like the way that I am, and I think he was probably the with the exception of my mum, he's probably the most compassionate person I knew, right? And I think I get my my very limited capacity, admittedly, but my capacity to understand emotion definitely sort of came from him, and the sort of like the way I am, especially to my girlfriend as well, like is definitely sort of down to the way that he was with my aunt, and sort of the way that he sort of treated people. So like you do feel a responsibility to sort of like try and carry those things on. I mean, I said to my
Yeah.
counselor, and we'll come back to stigma around counselling in a minute. I said to my counsellor that it's quite a frustrating thing, and I don't know if you felt this, maybe especially with your dad when you're talking about like men's mental health, is like
Mhm.
it's quite a difficult thing to accept that the stuff that you've learnt from them is now a finite bucket, right? And
Yeah.
that's now a set amount of information that you will now take forward with you, and it's never going to
Yeah.
grow again.
Yeah. Well, for me, that's the thing that I probably still struggle with all of them. Like, there's so many things that, because of like how I found out about my father, like becoming very ill, because he went through like cancer, and then he didn't tell me the truth. He told me that he was all fine, but actually the cancer never went away.
Right.
And so I found out very close to when he actually passed away that he wasn't going to get better.
Mm.
And so I was kind of filled with all these things like, what do I say? What do I ask? And then obviously hindsight, as my mum used to say, is 2020. Now
Yeah.
there's so many things I wish I could have asked, could have said. I mean, even recently with the whole pandemic thing, where I'm the president of a club, I'm responsible for people and their well-being, and bringing activity to people. There's so many things I would have asked them about, like, what's the best way to do this? How do I handle this? How do I make sure everyone's really enjoying it? And like you say, everything you have is finite now. It's never going to grow again.
Yeah, and
Um,
and you have to put it in a little box and say, this is my dad, or this is my uncle,
yeah,
or whatever, right? Like that's and it's a difficult thing, because you're right that not only are there lots of things you wish you'd asked, but also lots of things about them that you wish you could better convey to other people. If you see what I
yeah,
mean, like there's lots of like little things about my uncle I really wish that say, I mean, my girlfriend knew my uncle, but like maybe not as well
mm,
as I did, and there's lots of little things about him I wish I could sort of convey better, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of it is like stuff you can't really put into words, isn't it? Even if
Mm.
you even want to like show people, the best way to show them would have been, to introduce them, isn't
Yeah,
it?
absolutely.
I guess the small consolation is that I think it's like you say, is that like those sort of things that you want to show people, you show them through you now.
Yeah,
As you say, you learn a lot through him, and the way you understand people's emotions. Like it comes from him, but now it's a part of you.
yeah.
So a small consolation though, but I guess it's the only thing you
Well,
have,
and in a
isn't it?
way, right, and this is the way that I definitely viewed it for a long time, especially when my anxiety got pretty bad. It was you view that not only you view it as a blessing, sure, but you also view it as a tremendous responsibility.
Yes,
Like,
yeah, I agree.
and I
It's
think
like a
and the weight of it
yeah.
is actually insane.
Mm.
Where you sort of you feel like the brain's I've got my laptop on my lap. This is a terrible idea. It's like whoa, and every time I move like a tiny amount, this camera's moving. It's such a pain.
It's flushing my head. My table shakes. I was like,
Oh, for
I'm like,
God's
what?
sake! But yeah, like it's you have this you have this innate want to sort of like try and like convey all this stuff as best you can, but also knowing full well that you'll probably never do it justice. And I think that's a big responsibility and a pretty crazy weight, actually. Like that's the
It's like a bittersweet pill, isn't it? It's nice that you have that and you are able to convey some, but it will never be
yeah,
everything you want it to be.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean that takes a toll on a person, like then that's there's lots of things. I mean, my mum is like the queen of mindfulness, right? And she was always, my mum's lost a lot in her life. She lost her mum and her dad, very similar to the way that you did, and obviously her brother's just recently passed as well.
Yeah,
And she's very good at packaging things up into little boxes and putting them away and sort of thinking about today and tomorrow. Um,
yeah,
but then obviously on the flip side of that is you then have to think about how you've got all of this stuff in the past piling up,
yeah,
and you have to deal with that. And I think it's funny, like she's working through it incredibly well, but I think from my experience of how my mum has dealt differently with the death of my uncle to me, I think
yeah,
and my brother and my dad, I think the ability for men in general to just be willing to package stuff up and, you know, put it in the back and just think about that sounded bizarre, didn't it? That's not what I meant. You know, you know, take
Oh no.
I know this was never going to be good, was it? You know, so you know, take little things and package them up and just sort of leave them behind you, and then never really address them. I think we definitely do it a lot more, and I think we're probably guilty of it as well. Like, you know, it's definitely a thing that we do in order to cope. But then, you know, situations like this lockdown come around, and you know, and you're cut off from all of your support structures and stuff, and then you have to suddenly start dealing with this.
Yeah, I mean, from what you were saying, I kind of remember my dad speaking about this a lot, because obviously where, you know, his daughter died and my mum passed away, he kind of had to take the mantle as like the family for me, to sort of embody everything a family would be, just in one person for like his son. And it was kind of a given, I think, that he felt he had to carry that on and never really talk about it. He never really went into, like, he never spoke about my sister to me for a very long time, until I was probably like 20s. And she passed away when I was 8. So that's a hell of a long time for him to just carry that weight and not say anything. So he's a classic example of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's just, like you say, you never really know what's going on behind closed doors, do you? Like, someone on the surface may be coping absolutely fine, but then they've got this incredible weight on their shoulders that they're lugging around everywhere.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like me, right? I mean, this is the thing that struck me most recently is, I know that, you know, like with you, I mean, you know, you're a very mindful person. You're a very sort of like reserved individual, unless you're with me, Shums and Matt. And you know, you come across as, you know, not I don't want to say, not somebody that carries a lot of weight, but somebody that is sort of like is able to manage that, right? You know, I basically come across as sort of like a lofty puppy. Like, that's sort of like my general mood, right? Is that I'm, you know, I'm this sort of like this ever happy, ever sort of like wondered, wide-eyed child.
You know, the person you want to be around, have a good time, sort of thing.
Yeah, and like, you know, and don't get me wrong, like, that is me a good chunk of the time, but you know, at the same time, the reason why I'm like that is because my coping mechanism for life, is that, you know, I'm a connector, right? There are lots of people that, you know, like you know, my other half, she's an introvert, right? Like, big time. And is most comfortable either in her own space or in the space of people closest to her. Whereas I am most comfortable in company, any, all, and lots of it, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of like my natural space. I thrive off of...
Yeah, it's where you flourish.
Like overstimulation, I guess. You know, and so when something like lockdown comes along, like, you know, obviously puppy gets locked in cage, right? And you know, and now, you know, for me dealing with lockdown, you know, it's funny, I was saying to my mum, I don't feel bad, like really bad in negative situations, as long as I remain connected to people. You know, I'm able to process quite well when I'm, you know, with other people and I'm present in the moment and stuff. As soon as I'm disconnected, whether it be for good or ill, that's when I feel bad.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, from a mental health point of view, you know, talking about lockdown, that was when I suddenly took an absolute dive, right? And that's probably a reasonable shock to people, is that, you know, even now, I mean, you know, we've been doing classes all the way through lockdown. You know, I still come across as the happy-go-lucky puppy, but, like, you know, that doesn't sort of highlight what's going on. You know, things going on with me that obviously you know about and Paige knows about, but not necessarily everyone does.
Yes, no, I agree.
It's like a basket case, isn't it? You know, it's a classic highlight of thinking, oh, they're probably fine, but, you know, if you don't ask, you don't know.
That's the thing. That's why when I saw, like, a while ago, the whole asking twice how someone is, I think that just makes a difference, because, like, for people like you and I don't think we're the sort of people, how are you? Your immediate response is going to be, yeah, I'm fine, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Move on. But then people that know, for example, yourself again and I, if we ask again, like, no, really, what's up, sort of thing, then that's when we'll start to sort of maybe say something.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's, like, not just for guys, but, like, obviously now we're talking about mainly men, but I think generally people don't want to, I think the idea of it, like, maybe along the lines of, like, guilt as well, you don't want to bother someone with it, you feel like you have to deal with it yourself, and I think that's very much more so in guys, like, you kind of have to deal with it yourself almost, which I don't think
I
is
mean, and to be fair, you have, and I'm going to move my camera again because I'm uncomfortable. There we go. You've neatly segued into the next bit, which is I know it's almost like you did read it, right? Which is about sort of like talking about like independence, and there's a big sort of issue in men's mental health about sort of like needing to be independent, needing to deal with things on your own. And one thing which I've been reading recently is people wearing like these badges of honor about things that really should be negative. So like the one that is most obvious is sort of being overworked, right? People say things like, oh, I'm so stressed, or I'm so overworked, or my job is so busy, or I'm always busy, and and they take it as like a it's okay, and it's like, well, actually it's not. I mean, stress is the comedian Frankie Boyle, who is mostly known for being an actual savage, but sometimes comes up with genuine philosophical points. He had this this spiel about stress just being a way that the human race have relabeled unhappiness. Because if you say to people, the example he used was like, how are you feeling? And you sort of say, I'm a bit stressed, and my job's making me a bit stressed at the minute, and my girlfriend's very heavily pregnant, and that's making me really stressed, to be honest. If you replace the word stress in those sentences with unhappy, suddenly it sounds like something you really have to act on, right? I'm feeling a bit unhappy at the moment. My job is making me unhappy. My girlfriend's about to have a baby, and therefore that's making me really unhappy, to be honest. And when you put it like that, you suddenly think, oh, maybe I should take some actions here. But if you use the word stress, people just do nothing.
Yeah, well, I suppose stress indicates that it's temporary in a way. Like, oh, for example, when I'm saying I'm stressed, I think, right, I'm stressed for this period of time and it will get better. But me, I feel like when you say unhappiness, it's kind of like, this empty void of, oh God, what do I do now? And I'm unhappy. How do I make myself happy again? But the whole like badge of honor overworking, it totally reminds me of like placement. I'm not going to say company names. Where I went to placement, that's on you. But basically, I was asked this question once, like, how long have you been in the office when you were like in for a long time? I'm like, oh, okay, till like 10 p.m. That was like new to me, being in the office that late. Sure. He's like, oh, I was been in the office for 48 hours straight. I mean, my first question was like, when did you shower? But
I don't know about you, but I feel uncomfortable peeing in a toilet that's not my own. Like,
it's fine.
I mean, that's a different problem, I know. But like, what?
But like, the whole thing was like, oh yeah, I was in 48 hours. I'm like, why are you saying that like it's a good thing?
Yeah, exactly. You wear it like a badge of honor, right? It's just mad.
And that's very much, I think, like quite common amongst big corporates, to be honest. Like hard, fast sort of thing. That's why people like are funneled in and out like it's nothing, because half of it people can't hack it because it's just ruins them. And then the other is like it's assumed that you will overwork yourself. That's the norm, and if you don't, you're underperforming. Well, and I'm just
exactly. It's like an extension of like boys' locker room chat, isn't it?
Yeah.
So like, oh, I benched X amount, or I
can relate.
Or I kiss X amount of girls at a club, right? It's literally that, just in in accounting or consultancy or banking or insurance. It's the same thing.
Why do people think that's a good thing to do? Because, like you say, you caveat it with saying, yeah, it's just stress with work. But then, really, if you replace the word stress, like you say, with unhappiness, you should be doing everything to change that.
Yeah, exactly right. Like it's insane, and you're right that it has become the norm. And I think lots of people will listen to this or listen to other people talking about similar stuff, and really start to think about that in a different way, right? It's not it's not something, especially in Britain, and I'm going to come on to that in a minute. And being in the UK and being around British people, that don't get me wrong, we are not one people by any stretch, but there are cultural norms that come out in this country. Being here, there are lots of things that we do that are that just because they're normal doesn't make them right, and I think this is absolutely one of them.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, but and I think the other thing as well is that so there are some things, and I think this is a good sort of example for me about like the way that stress sort of manifests itself. And for me, like, I did, and also stress is a funny one because I didn't realize I was stressed until it was more than just stress, if that makes sense. So
That's a good.
one of the physical symptoms of stress is stomach aches, stomach cramps, right?
Yeah, didn't know that.
That's a physical symptom of stress, especially in men, because obviously you don't necessarily get sort of lower abdominal stomach cramps ever because you're not a woman, so it's very easy to distinguish that. Yeah, exactly. That either there's something wrong with you or you're stressed, right? And I was when in the first sort of couple of months of my placement, sort of just getting stomachache occasionally and being like, what's going on? I mean, you remember me being at dance, being like, oh, I must have pulled a muscle, right? Thinking that was definitely what I'd done, and it was only after, it was only after the stomachache would get worse and then better around the time that I was starting to have a bit of a panic and my anxiety was getting bad that I sort of made the connection that actually, stress of my my placement in the working from home scenario, being cut off from friends and family and stuff and uni, had caused stress that had then caused anxiety, and I only realised about the stress once the anxiousness had connected it all together, and by that point it's too late.
No, I agree, and I think as well, like it's reflected in both of us. Like we need to rationalize more than one thing as to why we're stressed. Like just then, I noticed that you were saying working from home, then the lockdown, then this, then that, then this, then this, as if you need like one of those is more than enough to say I'm stressed. Mm-hmm. But then by nature, I'm guilty of it too. We feel like, oh, that's not enough to like satisfy other people that, I'm actually stressed and it's worth thinking about.
Yeah.
Like, this. It's just like one of those is more than enough.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the one, I've learned that, I've learned that lesson half at dance and half with another hobby of mine, talking to some people, there was, the hardest lesson I think I've learned, as an adult, I think, is probably that everybody's entitled to how they're feeling, no matter how big or small you think it is, and it works both ways, because you can take that as, say, me trivializing how somebody else feels. You can take that as somebody else trivializing how I'm feeling, or most importantly for mental health, you trivializing how you are feeling. And I think that's been a big one. From my other hobby, a friend of mine, I have he is, without giving much of his private stuff away, he's been through the ringer in an immense way, and it's it is genuinely really upsetting, but at the same time he always has time for me and for whatever's going on with me, no matter how insignificant I think it is in the grand scheme of things that he suffered. And I think, learning that lesson, has been really important for me, to make sure that, if it is that you can only do 4 hours of today and you need to go to bed because you are just exhausted, and somebody's doing 48 hours in an office in London, that doesn't make you any more or less entitled to be stressed and exhausted than that person.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think that's like, people are always looking for a comparator, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just doesn't work because everyone's different. Like you say, something trivial to you most likely won't be to someone else, and something trivial to them will probably mean a lot to you. And like you say, that's what I found going through my long life, being 4 years older than you.
All right, Dad, like Christ.
Can you stop? Oh dear. But yeah, that's what I found, that however someone's feeling, they're entitled to that.
Yeah, so. And I think that not only to be entitled, but also to be empowered to feel that way. And I know, and I hate, empowerment has been hijacked by, political movements of all types, good or ill, over the last sort of short while. And no matter where you lean politically or whatever, the word empowerment now comes with both positive and negative connotations, unfortunately. But if you ignore and put all of that stuff to one side for a second, to be empowered to be justified in how you feel is not only a massive deal, but also something that I don't think anybody does.
No.
One thing I found with Molly, my girlfriend, is that like when she doesn't understand how she feels, and it breaks down or cries or is in a bad place, the first thing she'll say to me is that I'm being stupid, and it's like, well, you're not. you are justified in how you feel. And it's funny, when we've been together for 4.5 years now, like, when we first got together and up until about 2 years ago, the mental health issues were on her side, right? And she was working through a lot of stuff. And, my understanding of it was very limited, but I did my best to sort of, be present and support, and not necessarily to understand, because I don't think I could, but at least sort of know. Now that it's been my go, and, I'm the one sort of dealing with this stuff, and she's in a by and large, a very good place. It's been interesting to watch her and how she behaves differently than I did when she was the one in trouble, because she understands it intimately, and also I think it's changed her perspective on her own mental health, right? Where, she would say things, and she still does occasionally, but I've reminded her that it's kind of not the case. Like, she says stuff like it's stupid, or I'm the way that I'm feeling is sort of insignificant and it will pass. It's like, well, it's not insignificant to you right now, and from dealing with me at my worst that it's very much not insignificant at the time. Part of, and it brings back this thing of empowerment again. Part of dealing with mental health, especially with guys, because you have this tendency to take responsibility for stuff, is to own your problems, right? To say, I'm not in a great place right now. I would say, generally speaking, although I am better than I was 3 weeks ago, in the grand scheme of my life, I'm not in the best place in my head right now. But to own that and to say it out loud is, it does bring a pretty major amount of comfort in a weird way.
Yeah, it's like accepting, instead of just like brushing it under the carpet or something, it's like accepting that that's a problem and that it's something that does need to be addressed, not as something that, needs to be pushed away and pretend that's not happening, I guess.
Yeah, exactly right.
But yeah, no, I feel similar from when, like, before I got counselling and stuff, I was just for years just like, no, it's just, a blip or something. It's nothing significant that really needs to be addressed. But like you're saying, once you finally think, no, actually, I need to do something about this, because, I'm not in a good place, is when you actually start, it's like the first step in the right direction.
Absolutely, yeah. Saying you're not okay, but I will be better, is so much better than saying you're fine.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah. I think if I've turned that corner in the within the month of November. I think I've turned that corner of saying I'm okay and it will pass, rather than saying I'm not. Instead now I'm saying I'm not okay, but I will get better. And I think that's the change in attitude, I think, which is really helpful. Right, I think we've flogged that topic to death.
Oh dear. Let's go to the next topic.
Exactly. I have one more, and then we'll do sort of like a general, a general kind of thing just at the end, sort of like fill in sort of like odd bits and pieces that you think are, or I think are specifically important to highlight. But yeah, so I wrote this one as just, I get by with a little help from my friends, is how I wrote this one. Right? And I think talking about how, and this isn't necessarily specific to men's mental health, this is more a mental health thing. But I think there's there are lots of things about the culture between sort of like how men and women, and how people of other genders as well sort of interact, which is something I'll come on to in a second. Where like little things that sort of become part of the culture, like the running joke about how women go to the toilet in packs and men go alone, and all of this kind of stuff. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but they are indicative highlight points of the culture that we live in. And they give this sort of idea that women are pack animals and men are solitary, and that causes a lot of it's one of many examples, but I think it's the most obvious and the one that most people can relate to, and it gives it this men are solitary feeling, rather than the fact that humans in general are pack animals. I know that this might be something particularly difficult for you to discuss, probably, and I'm going to sort of like leave the floor open to you on this one. But the human pack, if you will, is the immediate family, whether you be the child or the adult, depending on the stage in your life that you're at, right? Which is why things like empty nest syndrome and stuff exist, right, for adults, and the unique and pretty horrendous position that you've been put in, right? On the opposite end of that.
Well, yeah, it's difficult because obviously I think the thing with my family is that because of the problems like started quite early on, it's almost been like an unsaid rule that you keep it within the family for my family in particular. So that means for me personally, I never reached out to other people because it was kind of like the not thing to do. If that makes sense. But then as like, you know, my family slowly, you know, dwindled, I was like, well, what do I do now? And for me, like without going too deep, that's where, you know, I kind of fell in love with BLDC because it was like the family I never thought I would get a chance to have.
Yeah, you build your own family, and
Yeah.
you know, and it depends whether, you know, whether you've lost yours or parts of yours, or, you know, in the probably the most common uni thing is that, you know, you are away from yours. You know, and all of those things are sort of like, you know, where none is an insignificant party for sure. And, you know, you do build your own family. You know, I've said a number of times in private, and now I'm about to say to however many people are going to watch this, that, you know, you are my family. Like, that's I know, right in the feels. No. Like, yeah, you know, and you do build your own family, and I think, you know, clubs at uni in general, not just ours, although I do think that we do a particularly good job of it. You know, you do build these. Yeah, I mean, I think we do a good job of it. You know, we do build the family connection for sure.
But no, I feel like people underestimate, like, as much as, like, yeah, usually your immediate source is your immediate family. But then I think people underestimate how powerful, like, you know, a club or a support structure outside that can be. Exactly. I mean, like talking to you and on a like one-to-one, that's helped me so much personally. And there's been times where, like, you know, and as well, I feel it's kind of like digressing a little, but it doesn't matter how long you've known people for as well, because that doesn't really. For me, when my dad passed away, I had friends that I'd known over a decade that suddenly disappeared on me, and yet people will be able to see that I'd known probably about a year were, you know, the people that got me through.
Yeah, I mean, I can say, and I won't give away which close friend of ours it is, just to protect his own privacy. But, you know, if you know us personally, you know, you'll know where I'm going with this one. You know, I lived with a mutual friend of ours, you know, for 2 years in halls and then at home, and, you know, I didn't know him very well at the beginning, and he didn't know me very well at all. But, you know, you're put in this situation where, you know, I went from living with, you know, my mum, my dad, and my brother to living with, you know, this friend, and it's like, you know, you find that you lean on these people oddly more than you thought, and, you know, and I have a distinct memory of, you know, following, you know, it was late at night and hearing sort of like, you know, some emotional distress, right, and following up on it, and that kind of thing is the thing I think people are underestimating about lockdown and about being either stuck at home or away from your support structures and stuff, is that, you know, you don't, you know, if he had been living alone or living back with you know, maybe members of his family that he's not necessarily as close with and stuff, you know, maybe that never would have been caught, and that would have been a much worse situation without getting by together. And, you know, and I can't say he's not done the same for me. I mean, you know, he checks up on me almost daily like he's my mother, and it's beautiful. But, like,
it was when I was in London, I'd get a daily message from him like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Hello."
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, the friendship, like the weird sort of slightly nerdy, definitely quirky brotherhood we built as a group of four with, you know, our other very close friend as well. You know, it's those sorts of things that it doesn't matter how, you know, deep up the shitter you are, or how far in the hole you've got, or whatever. You know, you can step away and everyone's going to cringe. You can play Warzone, or you can chat, or you can have a drink, or you can do something that is just a break from life.
It's like a breath of fresh air in, like, the cliche way. Honestly, it's like breathing in fresh air for the first time after you've been suffocating. That's the best way I can say it. I mean, sometimes it's just, you know, a funny, like, picture, a meme, or something we've had fun. Oh dear. But yeah, sometimes it can just be that, and, you know, it just makes your whole day so much better. Another distinct memory for me over the summer was I was at home by myself, didn't really know what to do because I was having to move off to London soon. I'd lost all my family. I was just like, what am I going to do? And then two people from BLDC turned up at my house and took me out for the day. And it just meant everything to me and made everything for me.
Yeah, that's great.
Because one, as well, with the whole sort of responsibility thing, I was like, I'm meant to look after myself. And then these two didn't think anything of it, just to sort of take me out for the day. And I'm like, that sort of thing is what people need.
Yeah.
In that place to get them through.
Yeah, I think getting by with a little help from your friends, like sometimes, I mean, obviously there's and I hate calling it organised fun because then it starts to sound like a work do, but like, where, organised fun, and don't get me wrong, that's what our club is, right? It is organised fun, right? That's what we do, but at the same time, the spontaneous moments that happen as a result of that are the little bits that do keep you going, and obviously it's much harder to do now, and we have to do it online, and all of that kind of stuff. Getting my I had my birthday in basically lockdown, right? 13th of September this year, as did you, right? Same day, everyone. Just saying.
Same day, 4 years apart.
Same day, 4 years apart. No, which one of us is the senior? It definitely ain't me. No, and I remember, being there and getting my birthday card from the club, and and I know this. I mean, and I don't like to make a big deal about it, but Paige and I have worked our asses off for the club because we love it, and because this sport has been my passion since I was about 5, and and because of other more personal things as well. I get on with Paige like a house on fire. And then the genuine sort of like conceptual belief that dance is an outlet for people because it's an art form, and
absolutely,
and I think seeing and reading, and I do still have it. I kept it. Reading some of the things that I had done for people, and that they'd said, and that they came back and said, this is not even necessarily dance related, but this is better because of you. Those are the little boosts, the little lights in the dark. And I had 20 odd of them in a birthday card, and that was incredibly special. And I think my laptop just froze. Hang on. Son of a bitch. Oh, okay, no, we're good. I think we're good. Michael, can you move? Right, yep, you're moving. Right, good. You froze then, I panicked.
You're freezing every now and then. I just like go with it, but it seems fine.
Yeah, whatever, doesn't matter. Probably going to cut all the video anyway. But yeah, and I think, and I mean, and I know that we keep up this, this facade that we low key hate one another and we're sort of like siblings that fight, but mine and Paige's friendship is a massive one, and and I think.
Yeah.
The great thing about that obviously is that we do sort of fulfill the role of dance parents, right? And we do get to sort of, in the same way that other universities, and I know that my brother's at King's in London, they have like uni mum and uni dad, right? It's sort of they do through like the courses and the and halls and stuff, right? And we had mentors when we were in halls, but it's not quite the same. At Surrey, the clubs do fulfill those roles. And Paige and I sort of slipping naturally into that, has been genuinely wonderful. Like I can't emphasize enough how being away from home for the first time had that little element as I started to settle in that sort of kept me going, and then subsequently living on my own and all of that kind of stuff, and how that affected me, and then having this this outlet is just insane. Like I can't ask enough. Right, Michael, I need to say for the record that we've been doing this for about 45 minutes, and this gonna be long.
That's a long boy.
It is. I mean, and I'm cool with that. But yeah, if we want to sort of like any sort of like closing thoughts about sort of like Movember and about the sponsoring stuff that we did and all of that good stuff, then this is your time.
Well, first thing I'd like to say to you personally, as much as like you feel that everyone has done a lot for you and helped you, I can safely say from myself and everyone that our lives are better with you in it.
Well,
100.
We'll do our best, my G. That's what
Because
we're here for, innit?
it's not what you're here for, but you've chosen that, and it's made my life a lot better. And there'd be a massive Allen-shaped hole in our club and in our lives if you weren't about. So
I mean,
you know,
could fill it with like a string bean, like I don't.
a long boy hole.
Oh God.
Really, mate. And yeah, I think everyone else does as well. Closing remarks wise, I guess. Don't know. Don't be afraid
That was
to.
all a waste of time then. Yeah, shit. Right.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know what we've been chatting about the last half an hour. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. No conclusions made. Fuck.
I think resounding, just don't be afraid to speak up. I know you hear it all the time from everyone, every like facet that you probably listen to, but I think people underestimate how much that will do both for you and yourself and letting people in to help. There's no doubt people close to you will be worried. And so just, you know, like you said, it's okay to not be okay. I think that does everyone a world of good. And you get by with a little help with your friends.
For sure.
Awesome.
For sure. I mean, you know, the only thing I'll say is that I understand personally, for sure, very recently that, you know, it's difficult to, it's first of all, it's difficult to admit that you're not okay. And then secondly, it's very, 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 very hard and annoying to hear from other people that you need to do stuff like just speak up, right? Because you know, you'll know it from experience as well, Michael. I'm sure that it doesn't work like that. You know, my dad is a very black and white person, a very logical person, and so am I most of the time. But these sort of things, they defy all logic, you know, and there are no just do this actions because there's a feeling in the way. And I do. Oh shit! I just dropped my pen. I do sincerely hope that, you know, by demonstrating that, you know, two people that in this group, you know, in the club, you know, we do have a lot on the line in a way, you know, like, you know, it's we are both, you know, very involved, and our, you know, our image and our personas do, you know, give stuff to the club. I do hope that, you know, seeing us demonstrate the fact that, you know, we are who we are, and you know, we can. I don't really want to give you or me an ego boost, but, you know, and we do get a lot of stuff done, but, you know, you can still have these issues and be, you know, functioning people. And I think, you know, that is the first step to really understanding yourself and what's going on with your friends. So yeah, I think that'll do it, Michael, because I've got 47 minutes of video to edit now. Yeah.
Shit, Alan. So yeah. Cheers.
We'll cut it out. We'll have like 10 minutes of just your face.
I'm just like, fuck.
Fantastic. But yes, okay. I'm going to click stop recording now and look at the monumental task I have ahead. But thank you very much.
Happy with what we covered? Do you think? Do you think it was?
Yeah, no. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for people for listening this far. If you have.
Yeah, for sure.
And we hope it helped in a way, and we also hope that when we get to, you know, weeks in the spring, you know, This Girl Can and other such things, I hope to, you know, drag a couple of female members of the club as well into you know, and to get them to do a similar thing so that we can sort of cover all bases in that respect, which would be nice.
And
cool.
For me, well, if you want to like reach out and send me a message because you want to know more, or you want to talk about how, you know, yourself, go ahead. I'm all ears. I may be a president of a dance club, but I'm first and foremost your friend. So
exactly, and I think that's true for me, or for the Wellbeing Champions, or for Paige, or for anybody on committee for sure.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Right, clicking the button.